Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Rundown. I'm Drew, and joining me tonight is the one and only Tyrese. I was not expecting him to make it tonight. I'm very excited that he's here. Otherwise, it would have been just me talking into a void alone in my apartment with just my cats around me. So, Tyrese, you doing okay?
Oh, hanging in there, hanging in there. As the caption says, I have a migraine, but I'm enthusiastic about a Knicks win, as enthusiastic as you can be.
Pretty much, right. But before we get into everything, we cannot forget our wonderful sponsors of BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from the NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC. BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with the odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Tyrese, we basically watched a game where the Knicks didn't have OG Anunoby and didn't have Jalen Brunson, and they beat the shit out of the Indiana Pacers. What a wonderful bounce back to such a horrific game that was that Celtics loss.
Yeah, I thought they came out with good energy. The lineups were the lineups,
They
and
were lineups, they existed.
and the first quarter was interesting in the fact that, despite the fact that we played Hart versus Huck 40 and Precious started and played the first, I think, 15 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
The Knicks had a lead after one, and basically, as soon as they got the lead midway through the second quarter, they basically were able to take over the game from there. It was just domination and domination through basically hammering the Pacers in the paint,
Yes.
which was hilarious. I think all of Josh Hart's points, aside for like 1-3, was essentially back cuts and
Yes. And layups.
and layups and transition.
That's it. That's it. That's all they were.
Like they
They just
basically just saw Thomas Bryant and Karl-Anthony Towns basically 40. He had 40 on his head, and then Josh Hart added another 30. So
yeah,
that kind
I
of shows you
believe
their rim defense was not there.
yeah, I believe more than half of the points actually came in the paint. Because they had before the game ended, I think they said they had 64 points in the paint, and the Knicks, I think, were at like 115 points or something like that. So like they really like the entire game was just in the paint, no Miles Turner, and they just attacked. I know the first quarter was wonky, but even like the first quarter and then going into the second, the Pacers take terrible three-pointers, right? So like because they take such terrible shots, especially in that first half, I didn't care, right? Like I didn't care what the score was. They were just taking terrible shots. And it wasn't until actually the second half where they stopped taking threes and started attacking the paint, which I actually started getting a little worried in for the Pacers. So it's like, oh shit, they realized that attacking Towns, attacking the paint is the way to go with this team. But I thought it was great. I even with Brunson getting 5 fouls by what I think it was like the 8 minute mark of the third quarter. It was something like
Yes,
that.
yes,
And man, I it was just crazy to see. And basically, Campaign played the rest of the game, and I think he had what
hooped
7 assists.
8 assists, 9 points. He hooped.
He did. He was honestly he did a really good job, just kind of like managing everything. Like he really stepped up in this game. And after I would say Josh Hart's first quarter was terrible, and then he bounced back. I would say
Yes. I thought Josh Hart had a classic Josh Hart performance where he basically wakes up midway through the second, and then once he wakes up, he's pretty much on. He's been on more offensively than defensively for the most part, but
yes, I
I
would agree with
still
that.
thought like his offense was so vital for this team. Again, he basically saw food anytime Obi Toppin was on him.
Every single
He
time,
saw
every
at
time.
literally every single time it was just swim move, back cut, finish at the rim, catch the ball. one-man fast break, transition layup, foul. Like, it was legitimately – it was the same play. They ran 2 plays the entire game, which was 3-point from Karl-Anthony Towns and back cut from Josh Hart,
Yeah, it was
which is
every single time.
hilarious.
They did there was nothing original the Knicks offense was really doing. Like, there was nothing crazy. There was nothing fancy about it. It was Indiana had no one to protect the rim, no one to play defense. They can't play defense. And that's it. Josh Hart was on the left corner. How many baskets do you think he had in the left corner, cutting and getting to the rim? I think we need to go back and like look at the shots. I would say
At least
probably
5.
yeah. I was gonna say at least 5 of them were the same like dunker spot type of shots. It was hilarious. It was just hilarious. It's really funny because it was all pretty much on Obi too, and it's oh man, Obi was getting cooked the entire game.
The Pacers front court intrigues me because they don't have a single good defender in their front court, and somehow, some way, they're all playable. It's fascinating. It kind of shows the limitations of this team. But yeah, like this team's offense just isn't good. It doesn't really move me. Andrew Nembhard gave them nothing. Halliburton
Nothing.
gave them nothing. Benedict Mathurin got to the line a ton, but it was largely ineffective. And then their bench was just not productive. And I
No,
get the
they were.
fact that like Miles Turner is a good shot blocker for them, but the offense just does not have the same kind of pop that it did last year. And I think part of that is because they really don't have any creation. And part of that is also guys like Obi Toppin, who had a career year, have started to rebound a little bit. Andrew Nembhard just isn't there as a shooter. Benedict Mathurin isn't really there too much as a perimeter player. TJ McConnell's having a down year. Like, it just kind of feels like they had that one year where their offense was just elite, 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 and now it's just kind of good. So
Well, they're also front runners, right? Like that's their whole thing. Their whole thing is to get out to a lead and then maintain it. Like we've seen this even last year with them, even with their great offense. Like Halliburton is like the classic example of a front runner, right? Where like he gives you nothing when the team needs it, especially when they're down. They were down like 10, they were down 5. They were still relatively like scrapping and fighting in that game, and absolutely nothing. His final stats were for Halliburton 16, 8, 5 with a minus 11. Right? Like he only took 15 shots. Like he needs, and this was like his biggest critique, like the entire even last year, and that's his main thing. Like he doesn't shoot the ball. He's supposed to be their best player. He doesn't shoot. He doesn't force the action at all. And he's one of those guys where like I just don't see it. Right? Like everyone, like there's a lot of things like he's an all-star, all this type of stuff. He's one of the guys in the NBA where like I just don't see it at all. I don't think he's that good. I really don't. He's like the third guy who connects because he's a really good passer and he can hit some open shots. Like he shouldn't be your best player like, at all. And I don't understand it at all.
He's never somebody who's gonna consistently take on usage. I think to be a number one option in the NBA, you need to be able to chuck. And
Yeah, you need to
Halliburton
chuck.
isn't a chuck. Like he doesn't chuck. He does not chuck. He takes 13 shots a game. His max was last year. He took 15 shots a game. And I think there's like he had a really good stretch to begin last season. And aside from that, he's just been like a 20 and 10 guy, which is not bad. Nobody's
No,
saying
there's
that's
nothing
bad.
wrong with that.
But that's not the kind of player that you give a 30% max to and tell him, hey, we need you to be like Jalen Brunson, who didn't even have a good game tonight, but you know the highs that Jalen Brunson could reach. Like, Halliburton is never going to do that in a series. He could do it for a game. He could do it for a couple of games. He's never going to do that for a series, and that limits your ceiling immensely.
Jalen Brunson's stats are hysterical. He had 8 points, 7 assists. He was 4 for 11 from the field, and he was a plus 10 with 5 fouls.
My man is in the Bay in his mind already. He is chilling. He is not trying. He's just trying to get to All-Star Weekend in one piece, and I don't blame him.
Yeah, this was one of the this was a really bad Brunson performance, really bad fouls, really bad decision stuff. But luckily, we had two bounce back games. Who I would say for the Celtics, like the two worst players on the court for the Knicks were probably Towns and Hart against the Celtics. So seeing them like bounce back and have absolutely fantastic fantastic performances against the Pacers. They basically carried the Knicks. They needed it because McHale didn't show up. Precious again didn't show up. Like Precious wasn't good again. Like his defense is terrible. Like absolutely terrible.
Yeah. Like I hate to pile on Precious.
I know because like he's still like he had 9 points, he had 12 rebounds, he had a couple, he had some good blocks, he can pass the ball, but he was the only starter with a minus. Like a plus minus, as Clyde would say. Like he had a -2. Like he just wasn't
the two worst players on the court were Huckporty and Precious, and Huckporty only got his minutes in that stupid ass Hart Precious Huckporty lineup.
That should never see the floor again. I don't know why it keeps happening. It needs to die forever.
Like Precious is a good defender next to OG, and that's kind of it. When he's not next to OG, he doesn't really hold up in terms of like a wing stopper. That's not his job. He's much more of a rim protector, but he's more of a defensive field goal protector. I think that's how we should probably classify like rim protection. It's like, do you get blocks or do you just jump vertically and deter shots at the rim without getting blocks? And that's what kind of Precious does. So when you see DEPM in the 90s, which is what I think Precious is at right now, he has a DEPM of like 91 percentile, which is again the noisiest stat I've ever seen in my fucking life. But it just kind of shows you that like he's not someone who can like anchor a defense, but he does have value in terms of being able to play defense as a 5, being able to do a little bit as a rebounder. Again, I thought he rebounded well today. I thought he had a couple of good.
He did rebound well today.
He had a couple good passes out of the post, but then he also tried to get too cute with his handle and then turned it over. He's a very, very interesting player, a fun player to watch when he's not on your team, but he's being overextended. He doesn't really help his team offensively. He doesn't help him defensively without OG. And it's very clear that despite my consultations with him, someone like Deuce should probably be in the starting lineup over him, or even Huckporty if you want to like go big. You want
to keep the size thing, yeah.
Yeah, like have it in a way that's conducive to making Cat a 4 and having legitimate rim protection over Precious, who doesn't really give you much of either.
I think Deuce should have started. It makes sense. I know why Precious started. It was ultimately like they needed a matchup for Siakam.
And it didn't even matter.
It didn't matter. But like that, I knew that was the logic going in. It was just like Tibbs is going to match him up with Siakam. I didn't think his defense on Siakam was that good, and they kind of showed that. Like I think they just need to kind of roll. Hopefully maybe after the All-Star break, but hopefully like OG will be back by then. But I think if someone like OG or McHale or someone like that goes out, I think it really makes sense just to have Deuce in the starting lineup and just kind of give him those minutes. The rebounding is going to be there. I think Tibbs is kind of like too worried about certain things that he doesn't need to be. He just get in Deuce, just give Deuce like the 30 minutes. Like if you flipped, so my oh my god, I was going to pull a U. Deuce instead of Miles. Deuce played 25 minutes. Precious played 33. I think if you just flip that, things would be kind of better, right? Because like you're allowing Precious to not overextend as much, and I think that's probably where he's probably better off being in like that 20-25 minute range right now with OG being out instead of the 30 plus.
Yes, he's not a 30-minute a night player. He's a 20 to 25 minute a night player, as you said. When OG's healthy, he's more of a 15-minute a night player. Barring foul trouble, it just kind of feels like you're starting the Knicks in a hole. And I think what we've seen is basically Precious has had a plus minus the last 5 games OG hasn't played.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's had a plus minus in all 5 of them. So clearly, like, you don't want to use single game plus minus in order to like make your observations. But if it keeps happening every game where the Knicks start out slow in the first quarter, kind of have to rebound in the second quarter, and then take over in his minutes, I think you need to pivot. I do think you need to pivot. I'm hoping that maybe that pivot can happen tomorrow because you're playing the Atlanta Hawks, who don't even have Jalen Johnson. They don't have DeAndre Hunter. So I'm hoping there's a pivot, but I don't know, man.
It's not happening. We know it's not happening. We know it's not.
Unfortunately.
All right, I'm going to go to some comments right now because I like this one from Jordan Bub. The Knicks most games with 40 points and 10 plus rebounds in a season, 10 for Patrick Ewing, 4 for Bob McAdoo, 4 Bernard King, and then 4 for Karl Anthony Towns. Towns was great tonight. He really was. Absolutely phenomenal game. And he needed to be because Jalen Brunson decided to check out of the game basically and just get all those fouls.
Yeah, I thought, again, Cat was dominant. He took advantage of playing against Thomas Bryant. And that's what you're supposed to do when you see Thomas Bryant. So I was really happy to see him perform in that manner. I thought the decision-making was good. I thought he played very much within himself. It was good to see him get threes up. I thought he was active defensively, not at the rim, but the rim defense wasn't there, but I thought he was able to get in passing lanes, which was really good to see. Yeah, I thought he just played with a lot of energy. I thought he held the team down when Brunson got that fifth foul, and he was able to benefit as a result. He played a fantastic game, 40 and 12 and 5 from your center. That's just that's the kind of shit that this team is basically asking for him a good amount of nights, and he was able to deliver.
Yeah, we got more from Jordan Bub. Karl Anthony Towns and Josh Hart are the second Knicks duo, each with 30 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists in a game, joining Willie Nollis and Richie Gehring on December 25th. Oh, on a Christmas Day game against the Philadelphia Warriors. So I don't think these guys are real. Have I said this already? I don't think Richie Gehring's real. I don't think some of these guys like before the 60s are real.
Richie Gehring's a psyop?
Yeah, exactly. Like
every
single time, right? Like every single time, like something happens, like he keeps popping up in like these like 1950s games. Like, what are we doing here? But it's nice to see that we finally have a more, something in modernity now with Towns and Hart breaking this in. Darius, how did you feel about your guy that you hate the most on this team, Deuce McBride, playing a good game?
I thought he hit threes. That's it.
That's it.
I thought Miles McBride hit threes, which he gets paid to do. So I'm glad he hit threes. But those takes inside the arc were fucking atrocious. In all seriousness,
yeah, they're pretty rough.
In all seriousness, like he tried to yam it on Halliburton for whatever reason, and that made no sense. He got stopped.
No, and then he switched it to his right hand to go over and under the rim, like just lay it up with your left hand.
I think he thinks he's 6'6" in his mind, which
he definitely thinks he's taller.
Like I enjoy the confidence, but it's also like you're a small guard. Learn to have your takes in a better spot. But otherwise, I thought the defense was good. I thought the impact was clearly there. He had a plus 25. I thought he was able to stabilize the team in the second quarter with his shooting. I think he made 3 threes in the second quarter. He was there as a scorer, and the scoring has been inconsistent. But when it's there, it's clearly there, and you can clearly see why the Knicks have such a big role for him. But when it's not there, it's rough. And it also doesn't help that he doesn't offer you much as a playmaker. There was a take, I think, in the fourth quarter where Cat basically gives him the ball on the pitch, sets the screen, and then Deuce McBride is basically trying to get his way into the middle of the floor. And then he can't do it. And I'm pretty sure
he can't do anything.
It was against TJ McConnell.
Yeah, exactly. And then he has to give it back to Town.
Yeah, like he couldn't get past CJ McConnell, and then he basically has to throw a grenade to Cat, and then Cat, I'm pretty sure, like hits it anyway because Cat was just on fucking fire this game. But I think that just kind of shows you, like, he's not there as a creator. He's been somewhat there as a shooter this season. If he's more consistent in that manner, then I'd feel better about him. If he got them up more, I'd feel a little bit better about him. But yeah, I mean, he had a good game. But overall, I do think that the struggles have been apparent. But he had a good game, so I'm not going to take that away from him, and I'm not going to harp too much on his struggles.
He is interesting. We see like the shooting and the defense like came from the G League, right? We saw that like translate. The passing hasn't translated whatsoever. I don't know if it's him not looking to pass or looking to play make. I don't know if it's the role Tibbs has specifically told him to do. I'm not entirely sure, but it is like the one thing really missing with him from basically being like a legitimate type of 6-man candidate versus kind of like he can, he's just kind of like the role player off the bench, if that makes sense, right? Like it's the one missing piece he just doesn't have. And I don't want to say it's frustrating, but like we could definitely see like this is what the team needs. Like that's what the team needs. Thank God Payne was actually providing that with Brunson being gone. But like that's what the team really needs off the bench is someone who could do that.
Yeah, I think this team needs somebody who could be a secondary playmaker next to Brunson. If Deuce could legitimately get paint touches and kick out, he would start.
Yes,
yes. He would start. But the problem is Brunson gives Deuce the ball on the catch. He's either shooting it or he's resetting the play.
Mm-hmm.
Versus Josh Hart, who, even though he can't really shoot it as well as Deuce McBride can, Josh Hart can take the ball, run a pick and roll. Josh Hart can be a screener. Josh Hart can be a roller. Josh Hart can be a transition threat. Josh Hart can be a cutting threat.
Yep.
Josh Hart does basically everything you can ask for him to do offensively while also being a secondary playmaker.
Yes.
I would agree. That's why he starts. Because offensively speaking, that's why his like LeBron WAR is insane. Like all of his advanced stats are basically like through the roof. And that's because his offensive impact is insane. And he arguably has some of the best offensive impact in the league without being able to shoot. So, and if the shooting is like decent, like you're actually like 34%, and I think I'm pretty sure he's at 34% for the season, then like he's fine. So
I'll look up Josh Hart's shooting right now.
34.3.
He's okay.
Yeah. 14.7, 9.6, 5.7.
Ace Bouchard has there ever been a good basketball player named Tyrese? That's a great question. I'm going with the Basketball Reference right now.
No. I'm pretty sure
it's basically, so just when I type in Tyrese, it's just Tyrese Halliburton, Tyrese Maxey, who's an Embiid merchant, someone named Tyrese Martin.
He plays on that. He plays on the Nets. He like torched us in the fourth quarter in Barclays.
Sure. Okay.
But somehow we won that game.
There's a Basketball Reference page to someone named Tyrese Samuels. And he went to apparently Seton Hall, Florida.
Okay. All right. Sure.
So there you go. Those are the Tyreses. It's basically Tyrese Maxey and Tyrese Halliburton. I loved having like Halliburton basically kind of like shit his pants again on like national TV. It was great to watch.
It just happens so much, man. Like there is no way there's a star in the NBA that can actively score 0 points multiple times in the season, and you're like,
yeah.
What kind of PR do you have? What kind of PR do you have to where you can just basically mail it in, like, and somehow, some way, you still get star caliber gas? I can't comprehend it. These games just happen way too often.
They really do.
He's just there. He's just existing, and it's like, how?
He's
really had multiple games scoring 0 points.
How many do you think he had this year?
2. He already had 2.
That's actually that's incredible, actually. And I'm kind of wondering, like, what type of.
One of them was against us.
Oh yeah,
The
that
game
is
in the
true.
Garden.
I forgot about that. You didn't
Like,
do that.
he's not a star. He's not a star. He's a
He
gifted
really
passer.
isn't.
He's a
That's really
gifted
it.
passer. He's efficient. He's not a star. He's not somebody who you can legitimately say, here is 30 usage, win us a game. He's just not that caliber of player. And that's fine. But if you can't do that, there are questions that should persist around you.
Listen, when Pascal Siakam is basically like their main offensive player, right? Like that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
I just don't believe in that team.
Yeah, Siakam is their best player. And Siakam's making 30% of the cap. So you can clearly tell where they're going to be. And he's not a bad player. Like, he's a solid player this year. He's somehow figured out shooting in Indiana.
A little bit, yeah.
Like, he's shooting like over 40%, which is hilarious. But if Pascal Siakam is your best player, we've seen that team before. We've seen that in Toronto, and Toronto didn't do shit. So yeah, but that's just kind of how I feel about the Pacers. They are quite literally a tier below us, and it's not even close.
Yeah, it's not even close. Neo Schmidt has kind of impressed with Shamit. Didn't need to hit his threes to finally impact the game. Shamit was solid. I have to say, Shamit was pretty solid. It was nice to see Landry Shamit play decently. Pretty much it. Like it was nice to see. It was refreshing.
Yeah, it was good. I was hopeful. I was very hopeful that he would be able to do this eventually. Because the weird thing with Shaman is, like, last year he figured out finishing. Like, with the Wizards, he could not shoot for shit. I think he shot like 33% from 3, but he was somehow like over 50% from 2-point range for the first time in his career. And I was like, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And now this year, he's shooting, what, 59% from 2?
Yep, 59 on twos.
Which is small sample size, obviously. He's shooting 30. He got up to 32%. No, 31% from 3. If he can shoot the ball, decently, like shooting at 36%, why wouldn't you just give him like the bar is in hell. The bar is in hell for Landry Shamet. Because if he can legitimately shoot the ball, he's actually a solid 10-minute rotation player. And minutes are precious, especially getting down the stretch. So
for his career, Shamit is a 38% 3-point shooter. So like it's there. Right? Like it's there. And it's not showing up. And you're right. It would be wonderful if he can get up to 35, 36, start hitting some screens off the catch, like off a screen or something like that. It would do wonders, I think, for the bench, right? Just give 10 minutes to it. It would be wonderful, absolutely wonderful to see. I mean, he did what, dislocate his shoulder, and then he basically rushed back in a couple months. So like,
yeah,
it's tough, but I was happy that he had a good game.
Yeah, it was just really good to see him be productive. I think especially productive with the finishing. Like I keep harping on the finishing. It was really, really encouraging for me. I think he maneuvers space well as a cutter. I think Cat found him with that really wicked over the head pass while he was running in transition. I think he finds space really well. I think if he could just get a little bit of a quicker trigger, like that's somebody who maybe I'll just put it on film, on record. I think Shamit can be a 20-minute a night rotation player for this team by the end of the season. I think he's going to find his shot. I think he's going to find his shot. I think he finds the shot, and once he finds the shot, I think it's going to be hard to stop him from playing because he does everything else tips once.
He does do everything else, right? Like he does compete on defense. He does cut, right? Like he does do the little things. Like he's moving off the ball. He does everything you want in a wing guy. So he really does. He can't hit a shot to save his life. But he hit one, which was great to see.
Yep. I want it to work. I think it's gonna work. I'm staking my flag in Shaman Island, and if it doesn't work out, you guys can clown me in 2 months. That's fine.
Yeah, we'll see. Judah Benshar, I probably messed that up, Judah. Sorry. A serious question. Are Precious and Tibbs doing questionable activity in the locker room, or is Tibbs just clinically brain dead? Judah, I think it's as simple as Tibbs doesn't want to sacrifice rebounding and size. It's unfortunately as simple as that. I think most of us disagree with that assessment because I don't think the Knicks need that. Just given the way the way Towns and Hart rebound, I don't think you need Precious out there, right? I think you could just throw Deuce in there and everything would be fine. But I know that's Tibbs' logic, right? I know it is. We need size. It's really that.
Yeah, it's a very archaic logic chain. I think he over relies on size. I don't know how you de-incentivize spacing to this extent in 2025 AD. It does not compute to me. Especially when you see it doesn't work game after game after game. And the crazy thing is, if he just, instead of taking out Cat, he just takes out Precious.
Yeah, I
And then
know.
it's like,
It's
or at the
as
very
simple as
least,
that.
like, if you're going to take out Cat, take out Hart too.
Yeah, like
and
he
just
won't
leave
do that.
McKellen. So I
Tyrese, apparently I nailed the last name. Oh wait, no. Is it no, wrong one. Sorry. Tyrese, I nailed the last name. I got it correct.
hell yeah.
Trust me, this is the first time I'll ever do that. I'm really bad with names. Like really, really bad. JK has this man wants Shamit for 20 minutes and wants to ship Deuce out for trash. He's talking about you,
Correct.
Tyrese.
Correct. Listen, here's the logic. I already said it. If he's going to be 6'2" and can't dribble, then that's a player that's pretty replaceable. But what do I know except for a dearth of NBA history and archetypes that matter? Yeah, like the problem with Deuce is that he's a 6'2", 3-and-D wing, quote unquote, who's really a 6'2", 3-and-D guard. And that's just not an archetype that sticks around in the league very long and is not really that valuable. You can maybe count on one hand the amount of players in the league right now who probably fit that archetype. Off the top of my head, D'Anthony Melton, someone like Davion Mitchell, and that's kind of it.
Deuce is a better 3-point shooter, though.
I think he's a better 3-point shooter than Davion Mitchell. But I think someone like D'Anthony Melton could like guard threes better than Deuce can, and I think that's where Deuce. If Deuce was stronger and could guard threes, then I'd be a little bit more encouraged by it. But the problem is, if he's going to be a mediocre shooter who can't really guard threes, who can't really guard threes and can't really run offense, then it becomes, well, eventually I want a bigger guy who can either move hard to the bench or kind of fill that 6th, 7th man. I want somebody who can run the offense when Brunson sits, and I want a big. Like, you kind of want a wing, a big, and a guard. And at that point, Deuce is just like your 9th man if he's still on the team. And it's like, well, if I want 10 minutes, I can just get a vet guard, and I'd be fine. That's just kind of where I'm at, where I'm like, Deuce feels more like an asset to me, where it's like he can save you some seconds in a deal.
Potentially. I think the issue though with kind of like this thing is he is almost there though. And I think that's one of the things and he has worked his way to the point of being this really good. Like he's a very, very good defensive player, right? Like he has very good defensive instincts. Mikal has finally picked up the like the point of attack defense, but there was a point where Deuce was like the best defensive like player
Yes.
on the team on the wing. So like he really is that valuable, and he can hit threes in waves. For him, I think he needs to be, I think, significantly more aggressive, just
He
as a
needs to
scorer,
dribble.
not even as a playmaker. Just if he needs to hit more three, like not only like take more threes. If he's having trouble getting to the rim, he does have a pull up mid range game. He needs to use that more, right? Like he needs to just be significantly more aggressive if he's not going to pass.
Yeah,
I think he's almost there. Like he's so close to being there. And then I think that's legitimate value then as a guard, like a legitimate scoring guard who can do this and like create, offense with defense and all that type of stuff. He's very close to being there.
I think where I kind of differ on Deuce is the lack of being able to dribble is so prevalent. Like he can't get to his spots. And I feel like
It's fair. No, it's fair.
if you can't get to your spots and you're a guard, life is so much harder. It's hard to be a guard.
Totally fair. It's totally fair. Yeah.
It's hard to be a guard in the NBA. It's hard to be a guard in the NBA. A small guard in the NBA, there's only a few guys in the league who hang around as small guards, and the majority of them are stars or minimum players. The range of expectations is just so volatile, and clearly, I don't think Deuce is going to be a star. You could be a star in your role. I don't think you could be a star, but to be 6'2" without really having like what I think it's a 6'7" wingspan, something like that, like 6'7", 6'8".
It's a plus wingspan. It's
I
definitely
get
a
it.
plus
It's
wingspan.
a good wingspan. It's just the size, and I think you see it where it's like he will try really hard defensively for 22 seconds on the clock, and then it'll be like a 6'5", 6'6" dude. And I think it happened with Mathurin today in a possession where like Deuce guarded him really well, did everything right, and then Mathurin still got the shot off because he's just 4 inches bigger. Like that's just the reality of being a small guard. If you can't routinely contest those shots, it becomes a lot harder to justify, okay, I'm going to play this guy minutes over somebody who's just taller. Like, if he was Lonzo Ball size, Deuce would probably be like a near $100 million player. Like, he'd probably
Yeah,
making as much as
he'd be a very good player.
like he'd be probably making nearly as much as Josh Hart does, maybe a little bit more. Because there's like, okay, I got shooting and I got POA defense from like a taller guy. But in a guard, it's just harder to justify. And then that guard also can't run offense. So he basically needs to play next to another small guard in Jalen Brunson. It just becomes a very complicated scenario for team building. But that's just how my views are on it. I think he's a positive player. I just don't think he's the guy that you hold on to trades if you can't find like an upgrade on the wing.
I think it depends. Well, I think it depends on the trade, right? Because I don't like the idea of doing like a 2-for-1 right now with the Knicks. You know what I mean? Like trading like 2 potential guys into one guy for some sort of consolidation. Like it really needs to be like a really good player in order to do that. If they can trade Deuce for like a wing of someone who is like as good as him, then I would say you would do it, right? Like I don't think Deuce is necessarily untradeable. I just think right now with the cap situation with the Knicks, it's really difficult to give up someone who actually has some sort of value on the bench. And making 2 of those. If it was like Deuce and Precious for someone, I don't know who that person would be, right? Like I could see doing that trade, but I don't know. It's they're tough right now with the cap stuff too,
Yeah,
and we have to see what Mitch is going to become in that type of stuff.
It's in like a real like off-season dilemma, because they're gonna have to do something with the Mitch salary slot because I don't think he's not on this team at the end of next season.
No, I agree. He's gone after this run. He's not staying.
So it's a matter of what do you do with that salary slot? What position does that turn into?
Mm-hmm.
And if you do get like an optimal position, I'm gonna mention him again, but like if the Knicks essentially traded Mitch for Lonzo Ball, I
Yes.
like if the bench next season would say campaign, Lonzo Ball, Deuce, and then like Huck 40 or whatever. That's a way more synergistic bench. You
I would
probably
agree
don't
with that.
have
That makes more sense.
like that makes more sense because now you have a wing. You have a wing who can shoot threes at volume, get your 3-point attempt rate up, can guard point of attack, and then Deuce could also do it as well. But he also doesn't need to run offense, but he could also play next to wings. I think you have to fit like the idea of like fitting pieces around Deuce to make him more valuable is just something that I'm like, I can understand the logic, but I can also understand just going, you know what, you're our ninth man. Like we're not gonna haggle over our ninth man, especially when our eighth man is campaign. We signed him for a minimum contract, and he's putting up a 2 EPM season.
It's good. I love that Cam. I love how Tibbs has managed campaign so well that campaign has become an analytics darling. It's wonderful to see. It's absolutely
It's
wonderful to
so
see.
funny, but it's also like it kind of shows you, yeah, guards don't matter, dude, unless you're a star. Like guards don't matter because you could just get a guard, and for the most part, you can make them playable if you have the right context. But yeah, like
I like
campaign is legitimately putting up more impact than this is my favorite stat. Yeah, he has a plus 1.9 offensive
mhm.
EPM. That's more impact than James Harden. That's more impact than John Morant.
Ooh,
It's
okay.
more
I'm
impact
liking
than
this.
Jalen Brown,
Well, Jalen
Julius
Brown sucks.
Randle.
That makes sense.
Like it's and I mean it makes sense. He shoots a lot of threes at volume. I think he's 12%, or rather no, 12 threes per 100 possessions, which is again hilarious. He shoots them at a high clip. His finishing has come around too. So like,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when he actually gets, and then when he gets minutes, kind of like he did because Brunson got in foul trouble, he will find open guys too. He will pass. It's not like he doesn't pass either. His pull up threes are just so like they jump off the screen because they could
Yeah.
be really bad, but like he does pass every now and then.
But yeah,
So
he's passable defensively. He has that net rating of plus 10.
it's great. He's a really funny player. He
He's my
really is.
favorite player in the NBA this season because it's legitimately like you watch this dude and you're just like, oh wow, this guy is like insane. But it's also like he's really effective in his role, and somehow, some way, like he's the best 15-minute player in the league. It's so funny.
I need to look up now who has a better assist percentage between Deuce and Campaign.
Also,
And
a funny stat is like I'm pretty sure Deuce McBride averages less drives per game than Campaign does, and Campaign plays 10 less minutes. So
yeah, so Campaign actually has the second highest assist percentage on the team behind Jalen Brunson.
oh, what a player! What a player!
I love it. I like this quote from Rick Carlisle because he's like, Towns is almost impossible to deal with. Lots of plays were so quick you couldn't even get him with the double teams. Did the Pacers even try to double team Towns at all this game? I don't think they did.
Nope. They did not try to double him, and then Carlisle said that it happened so quick that they couldn't double team. And I'm like, what?
I did.
The the Knicks are many things. Quick is not one of them.
No, they are the furthest thing from quick. Like
We are a glacial pace team. Like we don't we are maybe quick in the half court like 5 times a game.
we were it was kind of funny seeing the Knicks actually be fast without Jalen Brunson today though. That was just kind of funny. It was just
Yeah,
funny to
because
watch.
because
It was such a
Campaign
weird
can run
game.
that ball up.
It's true.
Campaign made it up.
Oh man, Campaign. I absolutely love it. Um Tyrese, I don't know if there's anything more we really need to cover. We have like the Atlanta game tomorrow and then it's the break.
Yeah. Hopefully another win against Trae Young and his balding head. I
I hope
expect
so.
I expect domination. I expect complete and utter domination. Once again, letting him know his place as a replacement All-Star, because that is all he will ever be, is a replacement All-Star. Fakest All-Star in the league, but whatever, he cried enough. So
That's true. I just want to end this by saying I was looking at the offensive box plus minus, and Campaign has a better offensive box plus minus than Mikal Bridges. So 1.5 versus 0.4. Yeah, I thought that was a good one. That is our show. We will, well, I don't know about we, someone will see you guys tomorrow.